it to you one more time.
You understand? The moon, listen clearly, the moon does not dictate the 7-day Sabbath.
The moon does not dictate the 7-day Sabbath. That's what he said. And then earlier I showed you the chart where they got the new moon and the full moon together, which the new moon is independent from the full moon. All right? These guys are totally confused. Okay? So with that, I'm going to end it there. Hopefully you were edified. On to the next one.
Giving all praises to Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai by Hashem Hawakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders here at Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully elect. So Elder Apostle Kabar asked us to do a response to what was said. Now this is nothing new that IUIC was teaching. They actually still been teaching this for a minute. They even as far as the change when the actual new moon is. You know, the new moon is when the moon is at, you can say, when it's dark, right? When it's dark, and the moon is at full when it's at, which would be the 15th day of the month, which would be when the moon is full, right? In this bright light, because it has its cycles, right? They teach that the actual full moon that we know it is really the so-called, really is the new moon, and that the white man changed the meaning. That's what they say. And, you know, even more, they teach that the Sabbath is a continuous Friday to Saturday sundown. That's what they teach. And then, but yet they show videos of them gathering themselves together when the moon is at full or when the moon is new, and say we celebrating a holy day, so to speak. So the question is, how can you call yourself an Israelite and acknowledge that the Bible tells you that the moon dictates the time and the days, but then just make a statement like that and say it doesn't dictate the 7-day Sabbath? And my question is, well, what does the Gregorian calendar? Because when you look up the Gregorian calendar, now this is the calendar that we're operating off now, but there were many calendars back then, because when the Greeks came into power, they had their own calendar set up, as well as the Romans. As the Wikipedia explains here, the Gregorian calendar is a calendar used in most parts of the world. It went into effect October 1582, following the papal bull Inter Gravissimus, issued by Pope Gregory the 13th. And that's why they call it the Gregorian calendar, because it was introduced by Pope Gregory the 13th. Goes on to say, which introduced it as a modification of and replacement for the Julian calendar. So prior to the Gregorian calendar, you had the Julian calendar, which looks like to be the calendar that the Romans were keeping during the time of Yahushua. It says the principal change was the space leap years differently so as to make the average calendar year 365.2425 days long, more closely approximating the 365.2422 day tropical or solar year that is determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun. So as you can see, they base the calendar based upon the sun. Whereas the Israelites, now we understand through history in the book, and it's really the truth. The truth is their true calendar is based upon the moon. And when you look up a lunar calendar versus a solar calendar, the lunar calendar is 11 days shorter. It's 354 days in decimal point, I think 0.25 as well. And here's what my belief. I believe that the reason that they teach, the reason they're teaching that is because it's not possible for them to teach the true doctrine when it comes to the moon, and at the same time, you can't teach that there's a consistent Friday to Saturday down to Sabbath. And I believe the reason the teaching that is because they know that, and that interferes with their consistency when it comes to them planning feasts and stuff like that, and boasting in the law. Because it would be, for them, it would be challenging to try to boast in keeping the law when you have to change your Sabbath throughout the month, each month. And well, first let me read Genesis 1:14. It says, "And the power said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So the lights in the heavens determines the days, signs, and the years. It says, "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth," and it was so. Now, with the sun, you can actually tell. You have what they call a sundial. That's where you can actually tell what time it is by the sun. So you can use the sun to tell what time it is, but it's the moon that dictates the actual day of the month. So if you happen to be on an island somewhere washed up and you didn't know what day it was, right? What you could do is look up to the moon. And you know the moon has phases. Okay? The moon has phases. Let's say what I would do is I would look at the moon, and let's say it's at full, right? I would say, okay, it's at full. So I know at the very least, I'm halfway in the month, the very least. And then I would count. I would wait the next day. The next day, if I see that it's getting darker, then I know for sure, okay, I must be in the 16th, approximately 16th, 17th day. Or let's say when you start, you see that the moon is just at crescent, right? It's at crescent. The way to determine is to just wait for the next day to see, did it get darker? If it got darker, then you know that you're moving towards the end of the month. Or if it got lighter, then you know, hey, okay, so we must be towards the full moon, going towards the middle of the month. That's how you could determine time, and that's how we determine time. See? The book of Psalms 81, verse 3, "Blow the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day." So our feast day is appointed on the moon. And then if you even read that in the King James, let's see, the New King James said, "Blow the trumpet in the time of the new moon at the full moon on our solemn feast day." And when you do that? During the feast, because it would be determined by the day. The word month literally means a moon. Let's just search the word month. Go to the first one, Genesis 7:11. "In the 600th year of the Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the foundations of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open." The word month in the Hebrew, chadash, which means the new moon. Okay. First day of the month, the lunar month. So when you read the word month, it's associated with the moon because it determines the time and the days. So how can it not determine what day it is? And how can it determines what day it is? So clearly it tells you when the Sabbath is. Clearly. Let's look at the word moon, which I know there's more than one word written for the word moon. The first one that comes up, Genesis 37:9, talking about Joseph. "And he dreamed yet another dream and told it to his brethren and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars made obedience to me." The word moon here, they have Yara'ah, which means moon. It says from the same root, Yara'ah, H3391. And look at that, month. So when you look up the word month or moon, is associated with each other, month, moon. So if the moon dictates the month, like the first day of the month, then clearly it dictates the day. Like, come on. And that's why I believe that the reason they teach that is because it interferes with them boasting in the law. Because if they accept the fact that the moon and this calendar that we're living in, right, which is the Gregorian calendar, which came in effect in 82, showing you that prior to that, it was a Julian calendar, and prior to that, there was another calendar, but us as Hebrews, our calendar was always the same. It was revealing to us that it's based off of the moon. So, by his explanation, if he's saying, like, yes, the moon tells time, but it doesn't dictate the 7-day Sabbath, then what does? Well, I guess his answer is the Gregorian calendar. So he's going off of the he's going off what the Edomites, the Roman Catholics, have put together. That's what they're going off of, and I believe they're going off of that because it's more convenient to just say Friday to Saturday consistently. Even though, let's say, the new moon, actually, as of right now, today being July 21st, the Sabbath comes in on a Friday evening, right? But we're at the full moon. We're past the full moon now, so in 2 more weeks, it's going to change. And for them, it's more convenient to just say Friday to Saturday because they can get a Monday through Friday job, and that they can just say, and they can boast in the law, because if they have to accept the fact that it changes each month, they'll know how difficult it is to try to boast in the law in the society when the Sabbath itself changes each month when we're under this Gregorian calendar, especially when each month doesn't even have the same days per month. You got 31 days this month, 30 days the next month. You have 29 days the month after that, right? Or whenever that comes in, February. So it'll change each month. And we keep up with that. We put out the videos. We say the new moon comes in, which the next one I could check in advance, but it'll probably come in on a Saturday, probably sometime during the Saturday evening. So it may change. Or depending on the time, it may be the Sunday, right? So, and we kept up with it. So we say, okay, so new moon comes in on a Saturday. Bam, that's so now we know that Saturday, from the 7 days from Saturday, which would be basically, you could say 4 Saturdays, that's the Sabbath. And then it could change the next month, which would probably be the Sunday, right? But you can just look up new moon calendar, or you can just get a calendar, and you'll see each month they got the cycles of the moon on the months, and you'll see that each month the new moon will fall on a different day of the month. And that's how we follow our calendar, just going back to the old customs. But you got an Israelite group who want to boast in the law. It could be difficult for them to to try to maintain that, and that's why and that's what I believe. I believe they just teach a Monday through Friday because out of convenience. That's what I would say. But the thing is, because they're not the only Israelite group that says that teaches that, and I believe they all do it for convenience sake, instead of just being honest with it, and they don't and admitting that a lot of them just don't understand the calendar. Instead of just being honest that we teach this because it's more convenient, they'll rather say that's not what the scripture's talking about. Then that's when you got to get rebuked, because now you're just lying. You're just lying. Romans 11, verse 5. Even so, then at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. So the fact of the matter is, we're under grace, and we're justified by our faith. And our faith fuels our works, right? So we understand that in this society, we can't keep the Sabbath perfectly, but we do recognize it in the days that it change. And we do our best to honor it the best we can. So we fashion our day prior. If we can, we try to do all our cooking in advance, right? We try to keep it holy, try to keep it spiritual. That's us trying to rehearse the righteous acts, right? Them guys, for them, because they want to boast in the law, say it's a Friday set, and I believe they do it because of convenience. Because in this world, you can get a Monday through Friday job, and And in that case, you could say, oh, I'm keeping the law. I'm boasting in the law. Well, first of all, no, you're not, because it's not a consistent Friday to Saturday sit down. And I actually had when I ran into that brother, Mahar Rakar from Army Israel, he said the same thing. You can't get a Monday through Friday job, brother. I was like, wait a minute. Sabbath isn't a consistent Monday through Friday, but that's when I realized. I said, oh, okay. I assume you guys are doing it for convenience sake, but it's not. Look, you got to teach the truth. But if you want to boast in the works, right? Then it says what? Because the scripture says, if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. And these guys don't really like the word grace. They don't really like that word mercy. How do I know that? Matthew 23:23. He said, the wicked scribes and Pharisees, what? You focus on the tithe of anise and cumin, but you omit the weightier matters of the law, judgment, grace, and mercy. Right? They don't like those words. They lack that. It's just the law, the works of the law. So then might say, well, wait a minute. The Sabbath changes each month. So you telling me you keep the Sabbath perfect each and every, well, it's Friday to Saturday. No, it's not. No, it's not. It makes absolutely no sense if you're saying the moon dictates the month, but it doesn't dictate the day. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. And that's because they're joined into the Edomites. They're joined into this way of thinking. They agree with this calendar. They agree with the Pope Gregorian calendar, because I believe it's because of convenience. But it's not the case, okay? Go to Sirach, as we know what it says. Sirach 43:6. He made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of times and a sign of the world. From the moon is the sign of feasts, and it's like a light that decreases in her perfection. The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument in the arms above, shining the firmament of heaven. So the word month means moon. So the time is dictated upon the moon. And the moon and so you know what day it is based upon the moon. So how can the moon not determine the seventh day? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. And that's all because, this is my personal belief, I speak as a man, they want to boast themselves in the law, and they know that in this society, we're going off a calendar that doesn't benefit us to try to keep the law perfectly, just as far as the Sabbath itself. So to counteract that, they just flat out say that, no, it ain't about with the moon. It's about, it's a Friday to Saturday, which you're not going to find the words Friday and Saturday in the scriptures at all. You see? And they want to boast in works because they want to take away from the grace. They have a problem with those words of grace and mercy and faith. They have a problem with those words. You see, at one point they called the Great Millstone the faith-based Israelite group. Now that's a compliment, but again, it was intended to try to take shots, right? Because they don't like those words. Yahushua said it: judgment, grace, and faith. No, judgment, mercy, and faith. You like those things. That's just madness. And you guys are just completely confused, right? And this is all because you're trying to boast in the law. You're trying to boast in the law. That's my personal opinion. That's what I believe. But regardless, you're wrong. What's the scripture here? I think it's Colossians. So here's the fact. Book of Colossians, chapter 2, verse 16. It says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Hamashiach. So if they were just honest, right, and they say, listen, we know that the moon, the scriptures tell you that the moon dictates the day, but we keep it on a Friday to Saturday Sabbath because of convenience for us, then guess what? That's a different mentality. That's a different attitude. We would say, okay, well, he's acknowledging according to the scriptures, but for them, they're doing it out of convenience, you can say. And then we would have to deal with that. We would say, okay, but eventually we're going to say, hey, look, brother, you brothers should try to keep it according to what it is. But if they was up front with it, then we would say, okay. But when they say that's not the lunar calendar is off, because they're not the only group that says that. They're not the only group that says that. When they say the lunar calendar is off, the moon, just like you heard there, the moon doesn't dictate the Sabbath day, the 7th-day Sabbath. What? Then now you're going off. You see, now you're going off. Now you're going off because you're clearly going off according to the scriptures. And I believe they say those things because it's not convenient for them, because they want to boast in the law. Look, we're in captivity. We're in captivity. And more importantly, we're justified by our grace and faith. And we uphold the law to the best of our ability. So we're still going to teach the importance of the Sabbath, what not to do on the Sabbath, like having sex and all that. We still have to push that out there, because scripture says a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. Jake is self-willed. Jake will use any paths he can get to fulfill the lust of the flesh. So you have to teach him the importance of the Sabbath so that he doesn't believe in just, doing whatever. So you still have to teach these things. But if you was to be honest and say, well, we just do it out of convenience, but we understand that it's based off the moon, then that's different. Okay, you at least being honest and you being sincere, and we would bear with that. Then eventually we would say, hey, okay, well then, brother, you know what? Eventually we would say you should try to keep it the right way. But hey, at least you being honest, right? Because in the kingdom we're gonna do it perfectly anyway. But the problem is these Israelites who want to boast in the works of the law and believe that they're perfected by the works of the law change the doctrine so that they can make themselves seem righteous. And that's just not right. Okay? So we're going to defend the gospel when it comes to the lunar calendar and the new moon. Always. All right? So with that, shalom.